Welcome back, and thank you so much for interacting with the program for the rest of the day. And thanks a lot to our last speaker, Ms. Gloria Sirobe. She's the chairperson of the Solidarity Fund. South Africans will remember that this fund was introduced by President Cyril Ramaphosa way back in March when he was announcing a national state of disaster in terms of funding the processes that will take place during the South African lockdown in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, as we continue with our program of the day, we are now joining a Zoom conversation, very important, very academic conversation, looking at what the role of universities is in playing, what role are universities playing in integrating the post-COVID-19 recovery program with the SDG quest. I'm sure you can already see on your Zoom screen an array of faces, and let me just introduce them now. Let's welcome Professor Adam Habib. He's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand. Welcome to you, Vice Chancellor.
Thank you very much.
Let's also welcome Professor Francis Peterson, Vice Chancellor, University of the Free State.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
Thank you. Now we welcome Professor Dan Khwadi, Vice Chancellor, Northwest University. Welcome to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you.
And now we welcome Professor Sakela Buhlungu, Vice Chancellor, University of Fort Hare. We also welcome Professor Eugene Kluter, the Vice Rector for Research, Innovation and Postgraduate Studies at Stellenbosch University. Welcome, Prof. We also welcome Professor Nico Koopman, the Vice Rector and for Social Impact, Transformation and Personnel at Stellenbosch University. To all of you, welcome and thank you so much. You may start the proceedings. Professor Habib?
Yeah, thank you very, very much. So colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you to Professor Madansela for inviting me to share my thoughts, as you said, on universities and their role in a post-COVID world and how would we speak to the issue of the SDGs. It's also wonderful to be with Francis Peterson and Dan. It's always great to speak with fellow vice chancellors. I'm going to very quickly, I was asked to speak in 10 minutes. And so I'm very cannot speak to all of them. I'm sure my colleagues will overlap with me. But what I want to speak to the SDG on higher education, I want to speak to the SDG on health, and I want to speak to the SDG on inequality. And I think that the universities have an important role to play in all three fronts. The first and the most obvious is if you look at COVID-19 and the issue of access, what COVID-19 has done has accelerated the possibilities of universities going online. And so if you take a place like Wits, something like 12% of our programs were online in February, March this year. From April, May this year, 100% of our teaching program was online. And in effect, COVID-19 compelled us to do so. And I think that that's going to live with us in quite significant ways. I don't believe we're going to go completely online, but I do believe that in the coming years, we're going to move towards what I call blended learning. Part of our program online, part of our program face-to-face, and we're going to navigate, if you like, between the two. And in a sense, what is important in recognizing is that's going to enable greater access if we can create the technological infrastructure to enable that to happen. So that's the first big question that I want to raise around that. Second, what is important, it seems to me, is the issue that all of our challenges globally are transnational in character. If COVID-19 has demonstrated anything to us, it's that all of our challenges are transnational, whether it's climate change, inequality, social and political polarization, renewable energy, public health, all of this are transnational in character. And if we're going to resolve them, we need global knowledge, we need great world-class technology and science, but you also need local knowledge, local understandings. And frankly, you're also going to need institutional capacity and human capabilities. Now, our notion of global partnerships undermines that. If you look, our notion of partnerships is to attract good, talented people to London and New York and Beijing, and then 80% of them don't return. And that notion of partnerships undermines institutional capacity because it entrenches the brain drain. And so we need to reimagine higher education that shows us, if you like, to be able to teach and to be able to have research programs that are transcontinental, transnational, and transinstitutional. There's nothing that stops UCL from having a joint program with the University of Free State on public health. And it seems to me that we could do that given the digital technologies that exist today. And that would enable us to grow institutional capacity, to grow human capabilities. And so COVID-19, I suspect, is going to put on the agenda in quite a dramatic way the issue of transnational and transinstitutional teaching programs. So that's the first big issue that I wanted to speak about. The second is the issue of health and the role of universities in that. And you would have seen in COVID-19 this huge challenge that has emerged around vaccine nationalism. The Americans and the British and the Europeans and the Chinese have bought up the world's supplies. And the big question is, they buy up the world's supplies and we will get the vaccine, even if we find one, 1 year, 18 months too late. And in that context, poor people, people in the developing world are likely going to die. Now, what that raises is two issues: the importance of vaccine research and the importance of vaccine clinical trials in places like South Africa and the developing world. And secondly, production capacity. Now, both those things are going to require universities. Clinical trials, we already at WITS undertaking 2 clinical trials, but we have no production capacity. And you would have seen Aspen announced in the last 24 hours or 48 hours that they now will be producing a J&J vaccine in South Africa. But to make that sustainable, that production capacity has to be supported by new vaccine technologies and new vaccine research. And that requires a relationship between our universities and our corporates. And that seems to me fundamental to that agenda. And so I want to argue universities are fundamental to their health, if you like, and to ensure that we create both the research and production capacities for drug therapies and vaccine production. It also, we are going to be fundamental to saying how this should be equitably distributed, so that even in South Africa, it's not the people in Sandton and Cape Town that get access to the vaccine, but the people in Mdantsane and Graspop also get access to the vaccine. And then finally, the third element of this challenge is, if you like, the SDGs inequality. And universities are absolutely fundamental in researching the kinds of inclusive policies that are required to both enable growth, but to enable inclusion. But we can only do this if we speak honestly and truthfully. We must have the courage to tackle difficult questions. And you can have the best policies you can have the best economic policies in the world. But if we don't have the courage to speak honestly about incompetent state officials, the fact that we made bad appointments in the state and the capacity of our state is very weak to implement any policies, then we're not going to succeed. We'll have to speak openly about how BEE is universities are and can play an important role, both in inequality, on health, on higher education. But they're only going to play that role if they have the courage to speak truth to power, to have to raise the difficult questions that are located in our society. If we're going to try and be politically correct, we are not going to be able to ask the hard questions, and therefore are not going to be able to advance the solutions, the agent-oriented solutions that would allow us to address access to higher education, to ensure quality of higher education, to ensure access to health and quality of health, and ensure appropriate policies in addressing inequality. And it seems to me that in all of those areas, universities are fundamental to the agenda, but only if they have the courage to speak truth to power. I'll stop there. Thank you very, very much.
Let's thank you there, Vice Chancellor Habib, for your contribution. Let's bring in now Professor Francis Peterson. Thank you so much, from the University of the Free State.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I'm sharing the screen now. If you can just indicate to me whether you can see my presentation. You can.
You have it.
Thank you. And I also would like to once again say afternoon to my fellow VCs, Adam and Dan, and I don't know whether Sakela and Nico and Eugene is on this call, but also good afternoon to them, and thank you to the organizers and for Professor Madusela for inviting me. So I totally agree with what Adam has been saying at a more global level. So my presentation is going to be referring to probably more a University of the Free State response in bringing the COVID-19 recovery plan closer to the SDGs. And I want to start off by going to the first slide in terms of the contribution of higher education to SDGs. And I want to refer to a statement made by Johanna Newman, which is the Chief Executive Officer of the Association for Commonwealth Universities. And she stated that universities are living laboratories, and it's probably also linked up to what Adam has said, and underpin all development targets, the SDGs, from poverty reduction to employability, to health, to environmental sustainability, to education, all the 17 SDGs. And I think most universities are involved in the SDGs in some way or another. The University of the Free State is involved with most, if not all, of these SDGs. But the question is, how would we as a university and as the University of the Free State go about to approach the SDGs and our involvement with the SDGs? First of all, learning, obviously, as a key component of the university is quite crucial. We do that through the learning, through sensitization, through engaging with the students, and all that the students would do at the university. We try to integrate some of those SDGs and SDGs thinking into the approach. The second one is the impact of research. We've heard about, for instance, vaccine development, but there's a lot of other applications in relation to the SDGs. So that's the second component, the second way of how we deal with that. Very importantly is the engagement with the public. I often say that the universities should not only focus on what we're doing in research and how well we teach and contribute and transfer that to our students, but also through our teaching and through our research, to what extent are we bettering our publics out there, whether it's a poor community or whether it's a company, a business or an industry. So the engagement with the public for us is quite crucial. And then very importantly is also how do we responsibly manage our operations as a university, whether it's green energy that we utilize, whether we look at the environment, how do we manage our carbon footprint. So that is how we at the University of the Free State approach our engagement with the SDGs. Now, if we talk about the COVID-19 recovery plan, then really what we're talking about primarily, it is about economic recovery. And the last couple of weeks, there was a lot of engagement. And I want to refer back to a statement that was made by our president in the address to the nation in April, where he referred to our new economy. And he said that our new economy must be founded on fairness, on empowerment, on justice, and on equality. And that is what we really need to get right. I'm not going to go into the detail of the economic recovery. I think we had various papers even before Minister Tito Mboweni present his mini budget, and the president presented the economic recovery plan. There was engagement with Business Unity South Africa. There was the plan on the social partners. So there's a lot of these documents, but primarily the COVID-19 recovery in South Africa is focused on economic recovery and probably also globally. Now, in terms of integrating, therefore, the COVID-19 recovery, which in a sense is your economic recovery, with the SDGs, you need to understand where and what the university is effectively doing. And again, I'm now localizing it more to the University of the Free State. As Adam have indicated, there are 17, and we can talk probably for days on all of the 17s. But I lifted out a few ones, which I think is important in the context of this specific conference and summit that we have. This one speaks to the SDGs 1, 2, and 8. Which is focusing on no poverty, zero hunger, decent work, and economic growth. And it's linked to the aspects in the COVID recovery or economic recovery plan to how do you reposition things like mining, agriculture, agro-processing? How do we focus on water projects? How do we look at employment stimulation, localization, also economic growth? And really what we have decided as a university, economic development in the essence of poverty and inequality is for us quite crucial. We've got a pro-VC that is coordinating that on behalf of the university. We're doing a lot of work on agriculture, and agriculture is we've got a faculty that focus on agriculture. Agriculture is quite big within the Free State province. So it is for us to very important to say, well, how do we add to the value and try to make it more competitive, the agriculture. We also have research and development in the areas of geology and mining. So this is, and there's obviously a lot that we could list here in terms of bringing those two goals together. The second one is goal 4, which Adam also talked about, and that is quality education. And how do we ensure inclusive, equitable, and quality education, and also promote lifelong opportunities? And again, the University of the Free State, and I presume if you talk about universities in general, need to play an active role. But if you link it to the COVID-19 recovery plan, for me, the focus should really on human capital development, and that is what we're doing. But also, why are we doing it? We're doing it to build a capable state, to also assist in building a capable state. Because in delivering these COVID-19 recovery plans, you need to have people with the right skill set. You need to have people with the competency to be able to deliver on that. And that is also to build the economy. In what I'm presenting on this slide was just some of the things that we're doing at the University of the Free State to be able to talk about lifelong learning, to also talk about changing skill sets and refining and looking at reskilling, but also to look at entrepreneurship as a vehicle to be able to build the economy. Then the SDGs 5 and 16 that we focus on gender equality, very crucial. In the context of COVID-19, we have seen an increase in gender-based violence, for instance. And again, our Center for African Gender Studies is doing a lot of work in trying to understand and enhance our understanding on the issues of gender rights, equality, and gender-based violence. And again, sustainable development is impossible without sustainable peace. And the work that we're doing on conflict, on peace and justice, in terms of the work that we're doing on our Free State Center for Human Rights that focus on advocacy, practical and legal work, and engaged scholarship, is trying to bring that aspect to the fore. And then, Madam Moderator, the final SDG that I think for me is probably the most critical one. It is the partnership for goals. And I believe that if we really would like to be successful in delivering a COVID-19 recovery plan and linking that with the SDGs, it is about collaboration. It is about co-creation. Some of the things that Adam Habib also mentioned about, but it's also about trust. And for me, that partnership is crucial, and it needs to be intentional. There needs to be an intentional focus on strong relationship between private sector, business, NGOs, public sector, and government. And if there isn't an appreciation for that, I would say that it would be very difficult to, you can do all the SDGs and get involved with that, but to make sure that the SDGs has an impact on our economic recovery, that is going to be extremely difficult. So I would say for me, this is probably the crucial one. And universities should play a major role in trying to stimulating that sort of partnership. Thank you, Chair.
We thank you so much, Professor Peter. Academic institutions are busy with, especially in relation to social justice. And we thank you very much for that very informative contribution. Let's now bring in Professor Dan Hwadi, the Vice Chancellor for the Northwest University. Prof, the stage is yours to speak.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks again to Professor for inviting me to this meeting. Thank you very much. Mine is on the responsible citizenry that we as universities are responsible to produce. So we've got the youth of the country at our disposal. They come to our institutions to learn. And what we need to provide them with is good quality education. They need to get quality education that will then ensure that we get responsible citizens that come from this. And I think Professor Madonsela will relate to this quite a lot. I had a discussion with her the other time on this issue. And I know her views very clearly on this one. So what we need to do is to close the gap. The product of our institutions must be ready to go and reduce this inequality that exists in our society. And it's only through good education that you can do that. And of course, good education alone does not help if the mindset is not right. There must also be the right mindset that goes with this. I think in a way, Professor Habib related to quite a number of things to ensure that also the politicians are right. We've got the right people. It talks to the right mindset. And then therefore, we will then be able to reduce this inequality. We know how education empowers one. You know, we all can talk about our own stories of how we've been empowered by education from poverty to at least the stage where we are. So without good education, definitely the families will remain as distant apart as they are economically. So we hope then that what we do at our institutions will then be able to address this. Then the next thing, of course, is universities not to remain ivory towers. And I think all of us as institutions have got community service departments. You know, the community engagement is one of the most important and crucial part of the university, whereby we implement our expertise. It's not just about providing handouts and all, it's an implementation of expertise by universities in the communities where they are based, and at times, of course, even far from such communities. So we do, as a university, then engage a lot with the communities in different ways to address what COVID-19 has really caused to the different communities. And this implementation of expertise is very important. I must say, partnerships are very key to universities. We don't operate as ivory towers. We have partnerships with industries. We create partnerships with the health society. And of course, now in finding the cure to the whole virus, vaccines and all that, we are there as universities, as partners with whoever engages with us. It is very important that the whole issue of industry and innovation is at our focus, because we need to be ensuring that innovation is driven from our institutions. That is all I really want to add to what the colleagues have been saying. And the other SDGs, there's quite a lot we can talk about them, but I think for me it was to focus on this one, on good education and reducing the role that it plays in reducing the inequalities. Of course, then poverty and hunger can be addressed through such. Thank you very much.
Professor Khwadi, thank you so much for your contribution. Quite understandable that you would focus in a space that is part of your expertise. And remember, you can take part in the conversation on social media. You can use the hashtags MFund or SDG10 or hashtag social justice to have a conversation about what you've heard so far. What are your thoughts about what Professor Adam Habib had to say, what Professor Francis Peterson had to say, and just now concluded Professor Dan Khwadi, as we bring in Professor Sakela Buhlungu, the Vice Chancellor for the University of Fort Hare. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. I can't, oh, there you are. I can see you now.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. You're welcome to start with your contribution to the conversation about what role are universities playing in integrating post-COVID-19 recovery programs with the SDG quest. You may take the
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to participate in this discussion. Indeed a discussion whose time has arrived. I'm going to come in from a slightly different angle. Partly because our university is and remains a rural university. It exists in a rural setting. And so the impacts of COVID here have a particularly kind of harsh kind of impact on communities, but also on our students, their families, and so on. So that's what we bring here. So in addition to what everyone else has been saying, about, for example, the fact that we provide skills and so on and so forth. The fact is that the University of Fort Hare exists in a rural setting. We have a campus in Alice, we have a campus in Bisho, a small town, and a campus in East London, a very rural metro for that matter. So how we therefore interact with these communities is very, very important. That our role therefore is to assist in various ways, assist through skills development, assist through providing services such as our legal clinic, which has a base in East London and Alice. Those are skills that are needed, especially in times like now, when people are going to go through difficult times financially and so on. Our legal clinic is there, but also we provide a whole lot of other things. We provide biogas energy, for example. We have a very, very important kind of unit in our university that provides biogas and provides it to rural communities. We provide short course programs through our Bisho campus, And these short course programs have different kind of facets. We have one for traditional leaders, we have one for municipal managers and municipal authorities, and we have one for senior civil servants and politicians. So we have all of these services, and through these interactions with these communities and these structures and institutions, our role is, I suppose, to repeat one speaker said, to develop and build and nurture responsible citizenship, but also responsive citizenship, responsive to the inequality in our region, responsible to a whole lot of other ills, social ills, gender-based violence, and so on and so forth. So we right at the heart of it here. We also, I should add, we also have a thriving faculty of agriculture here, which has been in existence for decades. Once again, the training, the skills, the support that we give to communities is very, very important. We also have, of course, our Nguni cattle project here, which again provides support to rural communities. We are basically the hub through which some of these interactions happen. All of them are interactions that are intended to deal with issues of inequality, of poverty, lack of access to clean water, lack of access to clean energy, and so on and so forth. So yes, all our activities, including the teaching and learning kind of programs and qualifications, are all oriented in one way or the other towards addressing some of the SDGs. So we're very proud, therefore, of playing the role in the communities that we exist, and making sure that that there's some ways in which people are trained to mitigate some of these issues, inequality, poverty, and so on and so forth. So we're very proud about that. Of course, it's not easy. COVID has not made things easy for us. It has had an impact in our university, in our region, in our province, and of course nationally. So we basically surrounded by communities in distress. Our students, we've lost a few students during this time. We've lost many people have lost family, friends, parents, and so on and so forth. And once again, we get called upon to kind of intervene to help mitigate some of the sharper and harsher impacts of COVID-19. So we're very pleased about the role we play. We also have extensive partnerships. Once again, we have partnerships with other universities, but very importantly, with partnerships with communities, where we provide a whole range of support kind of programs. Some of these were there before COVID. So in other words, I'm not saying that they're all kind of there because of COVID, but some of them will have a much bigger impact post-COVID. I'm thinking some of them that have been interrupted. We have been running together with the province programs on let me say preparation of matriculants during a winter school that we hold here for 2 weeks on campus. So we have a whole lot of those things, and it's all thanks to the partnerships that we have. And I think that we as a university will continue being there, but it also means that we have to think differently. We have to make our students think differently. We're not going to be able to conduct ourselves in the same old ways like before. Which is why, therefore, we're putting a lot of emphasis now on ensuring that the university remains stable. For whatever the causes of instability, we are addressing vigorously, so that for us to play that constructive that constructive kind of role in society, we are a stable university that we can undertake some of these tasks. So I will leave it there, moderator, and wait for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Buhlungu. I know this is not supposed to be a Q&A session, but I'm just abusing my position here. You're saying that it's your institution as a rural institution, but it's also one of those really legendary institutions in the country in terms of the iconic status of some of the most prolific and celebrated liberation fighters coming out of your institution. Are you finding it challenging to maintain that status?
Right. Thank you very much. Actually, I'm glad you raised this question, because the way we're using rural here is an affirming. We're claiming it, we're embracing it, but also we're working with it. In other words, we don't see it as a deficit, as stigma, but we see it as a positive. The fact that we're deeply, deeply embedded in these communities in ways that other institutions, city-based institutions, will never be. So that role for us is an organic role that happens all the time. But I should then say that, yes, being rural has got its own challenges for us. I'll give one little example, which the town of Alice, I can't remember what the population is, but we're the biggest institution there. The town of Alice does not have its own water treatment plant. The treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, is owned by the university, and the town rents from us. It just shows then some of the difficulties, some of ways of improvising and learning to embrace that rural nature of our region. Yes, there are others. We have a farm on campus, and very often rural farmers who have livestock. The livestock breaks onto our farm and destroys the crops, and there's fights and all of those kinds of things. But that's exactly part of the mix. That's what makes this legendary institution so exciting.
Thank you so much for a very affirming and very positive outlook in terms of your institution. Professor Bokongwe there, from the Vice Chancellor from the University of Fort Hare. Let's now move on to Professor Eugene Kluter. He's the Vice Rector for Research, Innovation and Postgraduate Studies at Stellenbosch University. Professor Kluter?
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, moderator. Thank you for the opportunity. I've been enjoying the discussion so far, those that I could attend.
Awesome.
I want to talk to you about a topic which, in the face of poverty and inequalities, might sound provocative to start with, but you'll soon get the drift. I want to talk about wealth. And I use wealth specifically in the context of universities being places where you create a wealth of knowledge and where we then share that wealth of knowledge. But I want to take it one step further, and I want to use wealth as an acronym for what I think should be the agenda on the African continent for research. It certainly plays a big part of our research agenda at Stellenbosch University, and it gives a good summary of the Sustainable Development Goals. So let me start with my acronym, and we are working also with the African Union Development Agency and NEPAD on this to help develop a roadmap for impact of research in Africa. So the W is for water. That means water provision. 300 million people in Africa do not have access to water on a daily basis. The E is for energy, with a focus on clean energy. The A is for agriculture. With that comes, of course, food security. The L is for land and how we optimize and use our land. The T is for technology. And the H is for health. So if you take any one of those 6 elements away, you are poor in one way or another. You're either water poor, energy poor, land poor, or health poor. The highest priority at the moment on the African continent, that's taken into consideration a combined report that was published by the African Union Development Agency of surveys done on the continent. Indicates that health is the #1 priority and the #1 issue in the continent at the moment with COVID-19 and also beyond. But I want to elaborate a little bit more, and I want to take the wealth acronym further. So it's water, energy, agriculture, land, technology, and health. And as a university, we focus in all of these areas. We either have research chairs or institutes or centers of excellence in these areas. In fact, in the field of health, we share with the University of Cape Town and with the University of the Witwatersrand a center of excellence in tuberculosis research. We have 2 centers of excellence working on HIV and so on. But I want to expand a little bit and move away just from the hard science. You will notice that water, energy, and so forth is really about the natural sciences. But the W is also for women and how we empower women in science and in academia, but also on the continent. The E is for energy, but there are quite a number of E's. We talk here about education, employment, the economy, and equity. The A for agriculture, but also access. That means access to water, access to energy, access to the economy, education, access to health. The L for land, but also for leadership and thought leadership. You would have noticed, colleagues, that there are a lot of leaders that actually speak, and they speak a lot before they think, and then they have to explain afterwards what they thought they were saying. The T for technology, but also for transformation. And I mean transformation here in the broadest sense of the word. The transforming the way that we work. I think COVID-19 pushed the future right into our face in terms of universities, not only to universities, but many other organizations, in terms of how we can transform the way we work. I often used to use the example of people sitting on our highways every day between Pretoria and Johannesburg and Cape Town and Somerset West. And I always said that I reckon 50% of those people can in fact work from home because they spend 2 hours in the traffic, they get to the office and they email each other from the one office to the next office. And then they spend 2 hours again in the afternoon getting back. Now, COVID has taught us you can do this from anywhere in the world, basically. I've got one of my colleagues at the moment in France in serious lockdown. In fact, our senior director for research, and we just had our meeting yesterday, and it's very much business as usual. So the H is, of course, for health, as I indicated, but also for housing and also for hope. What the world needs right now is a huge amount of hope. I want to start ending off by categorizing the world in 4 categories of hope. The first is where people have lost hope, specifically in COVID-19, and that leads to depression. People have lost their jobs, and they feel that the future is totally out of control. Then we have a category of people which have been denied hope, and there are millions of people, I believe, in Africa, in South Africa, that have been denied hope. I'm thinking specifically of our young people, our students at universities at the moment. Many of the promises that were made to them did not materialize, and this is why we had, I believe, fees must fall, and a lot of other pressures. So denying hope to people makes you angry. And we've seen that, and we still see it today in all the protests that we have. And then, of course, we have hope deferred. For that, you need patience. And what we need at the moment is hope realized. For that, we need a good vision, we need a plan, and we need action. And I believe universities are key players in delivering on that hope by educating our population and doing relevant research which addresses the major needs that we have on the continent, but also in South Africa. And thank you very much. With those few words, I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for notifying me. I was saying we thank you for your contribution and really, really value it. Let's welcome now Professor Nico Koopman, Vice Director, Social Impact, Transformation, and Personnel here at Stellenbosch University. Thank you so much for your time. What's your contribution today?
Thank you, moderator. It's a pleasure to join you and to juggle the technology, but I'm with you and I'll try to share my content. I hope that will work. Just indicate to me whether it is working, and I will simply speak.
Perfectly. It's working perfectly, and we can hear you.
And can you see my presentation?
A second ago, I could see you, but I don't see you anymore. I'm just going to ask the administrator if we have the presentation, because it's not up yet. All right, you're back on the screen, which is fantastic. Can see and hear you. We just need to see the presentation now. All right, please check your screen to see if you can see the presentation on your side?
I see it on my side, yes.
You.
Let me just click there.
Okay.
Otherwise, I will, in order to save time, rather just speak to it and hopefully it will
Absolutely.
solve it.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So my contribution also focuses on the role of universities with regard to social justice in the context of COVID-19. And I will make 3 points. I will firstly say what I think the role of the university is with regard to helping to develop intellectual and conceptual clarity in the face of resistances to social justice, and then 2 or 3 concluding remarks. But let me start with the various resistances that we have to social justice discourse and social justice initiatives. I think it's important that universities help us to look at the resistances. One resistance is that the term social justice is vague. What do we really talk about when we speak about social justice? Let us therefore then say our task is to help with a nuanced and analytical way of speaking about social justice. So one could say social justice is the justice of and the justice for society, for human society and for natural society. Social justice is constituted by a variety of forms of justice. It's redistributive justice, justice that distributes the essential necessities and goods of life fairly to all, especially to the most vulnerable in society. And we need the will and the wisdom to ensure fair distribution to all. That might be one way of talking about justice, social justice. Restorative justice is another term. It is justice that seeks the healing of what had been broken, relationships, trust, truth, dignity, freedom, equality, humaneness, life. Another form of social justice is restitutive justice, that we say justice establishes again the original status. Justice seeks reparation of what had been broken. Justice heals wounds. Justice seeks appropriate compensation. Justice rights wrongs. Then we have rehabilitative justice. That's justice that is therapeutic, healing, educative. Justice that restores privileges and reputation. Justice that takes away stigma and rejection. And then retributive and punishing justice that does not seek vengeance and destruction, but that seeks regret, remorse, repentance, reparation, rehabilitation, restitution, reconciliation, and healing. And then reconciling justice that does not alienate people, but justice that embraces and brings people together. So all these forms with all the R's are forms of social justice. It's justice for all in all life's relationships and spheres. And then important on this conceptual level is to say justice, social justice encompasses all relationships in which we live in human and natural society. It can therefore be described as justice that opposes racism, classism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, ageism, ecocide, etc. And for me, important also on the conceptual level is that we must develop discourses which says social justice defines the constitutional principles of societies, especially the South African society, where we say our most basic value is the value of dignity. So there's no talk of dignity if there's not justice. We say in the Constitution we want healing, freedom, and equality. And where there's not justice, there's not really healing, there's not freedom, there's not equality. A last remark on the analytical level can be that we say we distinguish between social justice as a vision, as a value, as a virtue, and as an obligation. Justice is an expression of the vision that we have for society. Justice is a value that we adhere to, something that weighs heavily for us. Justice is a virtue that we embody and live out, a predisposition, a tendency, an inclination, an intuition, a habit, an excellence with which we live. Justice as virtue means that we do not only talk about justice as something outside us, but that we ask whether we are people who embody justice, people of justice, just people, righteous people, fair people. And lastly, justice as obligation refers to the duty to seek justice through decisions and policies that we formulate. We draw upon various decision-making and policy-making theories and models to advance justice. Colleagues, then a second point of resistance to justice is that some people say, no, leave this discourse. It is exclusivist, it's extremist, it's even ideological. When you talk justice, people say, I feel you make me mouth dead. I cannot speak because I differ from you. Justice is viewed by some as a populist position that you take, that stigmatize and demonize everyone that differs from you. And advocates of justice is often viewed as people thinking they are on the moral high ground. And then another very brief opposition to justice discourse is that people say we become emotional when we speak justice. For some, it's a word that evokes joy, and for others, it's a word that evokes threat. And it's important that in justice discourse, we say, no, you cannot eliminate emotion. Yesterday at Stellenbosch University, together with colleague Tuli and the dean of our faculty and other colleagues, we launched a great work of art where you can clearly, visibly see the principles of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. And that was not only a pure cognitive opportunity, it was an emotional moment when you see our students and staff walk past here. They see the commitment to dignity, to healing, to justice, to freedom, to equality. And then the last point of resistance to justice discourse is that we look good on paper, but not good on the playing field. So at Stellenbosch University, during this time of COVID, we in a very special way worked hard to say, how do we think about justice, get more conceptual clarity, but how do we live it? And we therefore say, through all our work, our research and innovation, our learning and teaching, and through our transformative social impact, we advance justice. We have developed the so-called values that we summarize with the ECARE acronym, which says excellence for justice, compassion for justice, respect as a value in service of justice, and equity for justice. In conclusion, Chair, yes, we must reflect upon justice. We must get clarity. We must use all our academic imperatives at universities to advance justice. But in the end, we must do it. We must practice it. It must become concrete. And the Musa plan on which we focus here, and which we in a special way give momentum, is one crucial vehicle, one crucial element to take us forward, to say the credibility of all justice discourses is measured in the end by how do we look on the playing field. And all our discussions, also now at the conference, we do discuss with the hope that it will take us forward to look good on the playing field as well, and to do it with the belief, as Immanuel Kant has said, there's nothing as practical as good theories, and to do it in the belief that all our words in the end make new worlds, worlds where justice reigns supreme. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you to you, Professor Koopman. Are you saying there we should look good, but also do good? And thank you very much to all of our speakers. Just to quote Kate Robinson earlier, saying social justice is not only a word, but it's lots and lots of work. Professor Koopman, let me thank you. I see Professor Francis Peterson is still with us. Thank you so much. And to all the participants, Professor Adam Habib, the Vice Chancellor, University of Witwatersrand, and Professor Francis Peterson, you're there. Professor Dan Khwadi, Vice Chancellor of the Northwest University, and Professor Eugene Kluter. Profs, before I let you all go, just a quick one. Professor Tulima Donsela was saying earlier on that, you know, we've got to do the new normal, as everybody says, but it's just so the online platforms take away that sense of community that was there when the project was launched last year. Just your sense of how we have to do things now, contributing to a summit while you're in your office or at home. Let's start with you, Professor Peterson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do think that online is going to be there with us going forward. We can't argue against that. But I do think we have to build in an opportunity for us to also get together. When we have designed a flexible HR model for the University of the Free State, I said we need to build in at least a 5% time where staff come and spend some time at the university, because that social cohesion aspect is for me quite crucial. So although I fully support, and I don't think we could argue against it, that online virtual engagement is gonna be the case, I would ask for also, as in the case of online teaching and learning, that we also have a blended approach in terms of going to conferences, having summits like these, because that social cohesion aspect and just to talk to one another in person is for me quite crucial. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your response. Professor Khwadi,
Yes.
how are you finding it from the Northwest perspective?
Yes, we actually pride ourselves for vibrant student life. Now, we cannot talk of a vibrant student life when we're online. There must be contact of some kind. So, but what is clear is moving forward, we need to now have a multimodal approach where, we can switch to online as and when the situation dictates, but we must also be really ready. We really want to be a contact campus. We need to provide our students with this experience. It is very important. You can't read it in any textbook. How they mix with each other and live together. You can only experience diversity when you are when you're in contact, not really online. But to be able to switch to the mode when the situation dictates, it's very, very important on the online. This one really works for me. What also works is that with the online thing, you can actually go to a conference that otherwise you would have never afforded to attend. So that worked very well for me. Thanks.
Awesome. Professor Peterson, let's give you the last word.
Are you talking to me, moderator?
Yes, we're trying to find out how your institution is interacting with the new normal of having to do things online.
Well, just first a perspective on the old normal and the new normal. I don't think there was ever an old normal, and I don't think there will ever be a new normal. That's an oxymoron. The only normal is change. And that's true for our individual careers, for our students, and for our systems, and for the world, for that matter. We are seeing that in the election taking place at the moment in the USA. There's no new normal. It's just change. That's the only normal. But I think, and I want to add on to what Dan says, that the university provides more than just information and knowledge. Being on campus provides the students with tacit knowledge, and that tacit knowledge is equally important. What the internet can give you, what books can give you, and what most lecturers can give you would be explicit facts. That's explicit knowledge. But you cannot experience and get tacit knowledge over the internet unless we improvise something that will bring the tacit knowledge back. And I believe this is why universities have existed for hundreds of years. It's because of that experience, which you cannot match online. And I also want to agree with Professor Francis Peterson that we are social beings. We need to interact with one another. We need to see each other, look each other, more than just see the top half of the body, but to read the body language and so forth. So tacit knowledge is missing at the moment, and we need to find ways to bring that tacit knowledge back.
Again, let me thank you for your time today, and all the best for all the amazing work we will continue to see in terms of social justice coming out of your different institutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.